Good morning. Today's edition of the program. We allow our hearts to speak on Press R, but we invite our mind to guide the utterances of our heart. I got inspired by the sermon in my church today, focused on what the Bible says about strong drinks. Drinkers of alcohol are quick to quote John 2:1-11, Jesus' first miracle when he turned water into wine. Another justification they give is Paul's letter to Timothy in chapter 5 verse 23, where we read, "Take a little wine for thy stomach's sake and thy often infirmities." My pastor said by trying to use subjective arguments to do something that will lead to sin, that is getting drunk. Why don't we simply go to the objective premise which says don't take drinks, strong drinks at all. Our interest on Press R comes in the third objective extension of his message, which he said, you can even drink but not get drunk. That's what some other people are saying. But also it is said that if by just drinking you influence a weak person to drink and get drunk, you have not only sinned, you have caused some other person to sin. And that is where our topic comes in. Church and power at all cost. Are our church leaders, the pastors, all other leaders, living examples? Are they leading other Christians and other world members, even unbelievers, away from the church? Or they are, by their behavior, getting them to the church? That is our focus, and we have with us here today, we're going to question them on some of these points. Reverend Dr. Diteme Shalaman, who is the executive president of the Cameroon Baptist Convention. We are glad to have you here, Reverend.
Thank you, Brother Ndakili.
We have another Reverend Emmanuel Masok, Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, Secretary Committee of the Ministry. We are also very honored once again to have you here, Reverend.
Thank you very much, Brother Ndakili, for always bringing me on.
Thank you. We will bring you on until you get tired. Just next to you, Richard Nde. Richard Nde is the publisher of the Herald Tribune. Richard Nde is also a regular panelist on Press R. He is a Christian, and I know his knowledge is deep, and he is going to contribute to our debate in a very interesting manner. Richard, we are happy you have accepted to come.
Thank you very much, Killian, for the opportunity once more. Several times I've missed the opportunity because of other duties, but thank God that today I am available, and that's why I'm taking part in this program, hoping that at the end of the day we'll be able to come out with something that viewers out there are going to learn, especially with the presence of men of God of high standard.
Thank you very much. High standard indeed. Joe Tiemoncho is a senior journalist. He also is a regular panelist on this set. Joe, your ideas are usually incisive.
Killian, thank you. Greater is the Spirit of God that is in us than what is in the world. And even when we were sinners, the Lord has never departed from us. You can get that in John 4 verse 4b following. And so we are here to contribute to nation building and by extension to worship the Lord.
Thank you very much, Reverend, the two of you. Let me tell you that Joe can quote the Bible as he has done, off the cuff. And very interestingly also, he can quote the Quran.
Okay,
to be very frank with you.
Yeah, Joe is our member, so I think that is credit to our teaching ministry in the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon.
Exactly.
The CMF movement.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, you can now see that the debate today is going to be very interesting. We should just tell you also that we are not going to miss out on anything. Even juju in church, we're going to talk about that. You cannot go away. We're going to start with the first things on the program. The first lot that we have is press review. Emanuela Vemnu did press review for Press R. Emanuela, what did the paper say in the week that has just ended?
Thank you very much, Killian. Thank you very much, Reverend Ndakili, for the opportunity once more to
The Newsweek ending appeared rich in content with readers hooked to diverse news stories. There are better days for domestic workers in Cameroon in the Herald Tribune as the CNPS obliges coverage of domestic workers in the horizon. To the Guardian Post, CNPS engages to ensure social security for domestic servants. Cameroon Insider says National Social Insurance Fund wants all domestic workers insured. Else, at the time, Northwest Funds declare spiritual war against Amber fighters in the Guardian Post. Population reject calls for lockdown in the Herald Tribune. And in the face of brutal violence and ghost towns imposed on population, the European Union ambassador says diaspora Ambazonians are thugs and tyrants in the median. Then writes NGOs urges action by international community in the horizon before the diaspora begs for general amnesty as road to peace in the two regions in municipal updates. Just when one of the Yamba frontliners, Eric Tato, endorses effective schooling, says lockdown no longer relevant in the Guardian Post, children in the two regions refuse to let lockdown and insecurity obstruct their education in the Post newspaper. Perhaps the change in peace advocacy approach in the Northwest and Southwest by the Fomoyo Foundation, reported by The Voice Weekender, will bring an end to the crisis. Water scarcity then hits Kumba amidst heavy rains and flooded rivers in the median. Then Kumba 2 Council wages war against water crisis in municipal updates. Before Mukete IV, Ekoko and Kumba 1 mayor set out to rescue population by providing them with potable water in the horizon. Eco Outlook says government has announced water supply bailout as taps run dry in Yaoundé. At a time, the Post Weekender wants to know what Cameroon is doing with 329 political parties, jailed MRC supporters, mock judges and chant anti-Biya songs in Yaoundé court in the Guardian Post. The Director General of Taxation and Private Sector Actors then concert in Douala on targeting challenges in the Guardian Post. Cameroon Tribune sees this as facing the realities in the taxation sector head-on. Then the United Nations organization renews trust in Cameroon Defense and Security Forces for yet another peacekeeping mission to the Central African Republic in the median. To Cameroon Insider, it is the 9th Cameroonian contingent that is off to Bangui before Biya dispatches Dion Gute to Queen Elizabeth II's funeral Monday in London. In municipal updates, as FIFA World Cup in Qatar draws near, indomitable Lions coach Song Bahanak faces the press in Cameroon Insider. Cameroon Tribune then presents Coach Song's choices of players called to camp. The Guardian Post is more specific. Song retains 26 players for Uzbekistan and South Korea friendlies. On its heels, the Herald Tribune gives reasons why Chupo, Angisa and Ngadu out of Lions Den. Cameroon Insider says 4 new players were called to freshen up their squad. CRTV's journalist and special reporter for the First Lady Chantal Biya in Nangakebi dies in the Guardian Post. Then tributes pour for her in Cameroon Insider. Let's now end our press review with this story in the horizon, where 3 Cameroonian startups have been selected by the American firm Google to be part of the Google Startups Black Founders Fund for the African continent. They include Cameroon's Bee, which operates a motorbike taxi ordering services in Douala, Cover, a digital insurance platform that provides services to insurance users, and lastly, Health Lane, a medical service application. They are said to benefit between $50,000 to $200,000 in Google Cloud credits and technical assistance to grow their startups. Until I come your way again, this is your Hour with the Press.
A rich start of the Hour with the Press. Emanuela, we want to thank you once again for your commitment. You listened to the press so much, went under the bridge during the week that just ended. But our focus is something that is current. Our focus is something that comes up almost every day on in the press, because the church, many people are asking so many questions. Reverend, I should start with you. How truly is the church? Our topic is church and power at all costs. The power, obviously, we're talking about earthly power that we see infiltrating into church. From a general perspective, are you calm when you see what's happening in the church in general? We're talking about the church in general for now.
Yes, I'm very calm because the tendencies and the patterns you observe today are nothing new. Right in the days of Jesus Christ, his disciples began to ask, who is the greatest amongst them? I think this is not in contemporary era. Some of these tendencies, they may look a social crisis, but they are not. It is a reflection of our the nature, our humanity. We are fallen human beings, and some of those things express themselves. It behoves of the church now to provide an answer to such tendencies. So I'm not frightened, because beside issues of power and position, there are other things that confront the church. And you know that the gospel of Jesus Christ is all about confronting man in his shortcoming, providing salvation to save man from his fallen human nature. So those things, rather, they only point and make the mission of the church relevant, rather than dent our ambition. So I'm not surprised.
Richard, well, he has ended by saying he's not surprised, but he started by saying he is calm.
Yes, very calm. Very
Can
calm.
you, Richard, as a Christian, put yourself even in the place of a normal citizen? Will you be calm to see what's happening in our church today?
It's a great embarrassment, Killian, when we observe what is happening in our various churches today, where those who are supposed to lead people to God, those who are supposed to moralize society, are instead the ones being demoralizing the society by their way of lives. That they have transformed, what is supposed to be for the church, for the common good, to some kind of an individual possession, where any position that you want to occupy, you want to use it as a means to, first of all, enrich yourself, especially I'm talking about within the church, because we have men of God who are supposed to lead the people towards Christ. They are rather leading the people towards inheritance, towards materialistic goods. And that is why when I see what is happening in some of the churches, it's so embarrassing that we find people fighting over positions in church, and at that cost, or at that particular instant, many people will tend to abandon the church because they are not, the pastors or their leaders are not living the way they are supposed to live. So
Yes, Richard, I'll stay with you. What do you say they are amassing wealth? Some pastors justify that, saying that, why do you think pastors should be poor?
we are not saying that pastors should be poor. Poverty depends on how you perceive it. When you start building mansions, owning cars, having businesses around, I don't think as a pastor that is what you are supposed to do, because again that is going to deviate you from your Christians. You will spend more time looking over your wealth than attending to the Christians whose souls
Are you supposing? Are you supposing, or you're saying what happened?
No, they are there. We have them all around. We have them. It's not like I'm supposing. They are there. We have staunch church leaders who own businesses.
So they are businessmen in church instead. Okay.
Exactly.
Reverend Dr. Nditeme Jalman, Executive President of the Cameroon Baptist Convention. We are very happy to have you, because you are also called by people around you as Mr. Truth. Are you calm? Are you serene when you look at what's happening in our church today?
If it is about calmness, I would say yes, I am calm. But the calmness is one that is mixed with tears, with pain. Because for a truth, what is happening in the church today is unimaginable. It is just unacceptable. It is painful. It is shameful. And we should not look at it just superficially or just say people are fighting for power today in church, people are fighting for worth today in church. I look at it from another angle, from a different perspective, namely that there has been a paradigm shift in church life nowadays, which has created the situation in which we are. And I accuse two things. I point my finger at two things. One is what I would call the economic crisis that invaded the global space in the 1980s. You see, before that time, when there wasn't this global economic crisis, those who went into ministry were genuine people who have been called by God. And they knew what being a servant of God is, and what their goals, their objectives, and what they need to pursue is. But with the coming of the economic crisis, things have changed drastically and unfortunately very negatively, whereby you see people who have tried their hand. Maybe they try to enter the army, it doesn't work. They try the police, it doesn't work. They write the competitive exams to enter into any professional corps, it doesn't work. And as I used to put it sometimes to my fellow colleagues of the Cameroon Baptist Convention, he is permanently number 52nd out of 52, or he is 51st out of 51. And at the end of the day, someone tells them that, oh, you go to the seminary, nobody fails. And then,
you're in.
They stray themselves and they find themselves in the seminary. And then they go through the rounds. 3 years, 4 years, depending on which program they go into. And after they graduate, they find themselves in church. What do you expect?
Reverend, I don't see that actually well justified, because when we go into the Bible and we see the story of Paul, who is one of the prominent, who wrote apostle in the Bible.
Yes.
His background is one of the worst that we ever knew, but he came to be this. Let us say, when you say they failed,
wait a minute.
Paul was a persecutor of Christians, of even the people of God himself, but he changed.
Yes, the conversion of Paul was a genuine conversion. It was not counterfeit. It was genuine. Paul went from being commander-in-chief of the devil to being commander-in-chief of Jesus Christ. And he says it. He even, at some point, he even says that I am not even fit to be called an apostle because I persecuted the church. His conversion was genuine. What I'm talking here is about people who did not have a call in the first place and who are in the ministry. That is one, the economic crisis. And at the other level, I also see the legal framework that permit me say that to some extent public authorities have not facilitated the task for the church by creating or allowing or permitting a legal environment which makes it possible for any Tom or Dick, any charlatan, to proclaim himself or herself a pastor. And when this happens, and the promotion of sowing of seed, promotion of prosperity theology, when such things happen, what do you expect? And for you, the laity, you may only watch it from outside and say the church is now a power struggling ground. The church is now a money striving to make money, or the pastors. But the fact is, if you go down beyond the surface, you see all these kind of situation. If they are redressed, the situation will change.
Joe, I'll come to you, but I will stay with the two reverends that we have here. He's talking about people who miss their way and come. We are going to go into detail, but since you've talked about that, we cannot miss out on that for now. We see juju. I'm talking about magical powers in the mainstream churches. We know of the one in Kumba, that's in the PCC. We know of all the other churches. We have seen magical powers used in the open.
The one in Manda of the CBC in Bamenda.
The one in Bamenda, Redeemer Baptist Church. We are going to come to details with that. It was just to say what you are saying, that these people stray. These are people you trained yourself. They went through the seminary. They had all the possibilities to be groomed by you, to, in short, for the devil to be cast out of them. But they are operating in the
let me try to make a response to what the journalist said here. You know, you must draw a line between freestyle ministry and missionary churches. In the freestyle ministry, they are, you could call them pastorpreneurs. Their ministry may not be full-time. There you are allowed to run corporate businesses. You are allowed to run even ministry in the form of a business. These are self-styled churches. But don't mix up between the mainline churches. We are missionary churches whose mission is sometimes streamlined. The level of training is more disciplined, and even this level of control. Theology is not loose. So don't mix up when you're trying to talk about the nomenclature of churches. Try to draw a line between self-proclaimed prophets, self-proclaimed church owners who are being run as pastoral and entrepreneurial structures, and missionary churches where the level of control is completely different. Let me give you an example. In the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, we have the congregation, we have the presbytery and the synod, and the pastor is not the owner of any of the churches.
But we're talking about juju in this mainstream denomination.
When you say about juju, what do you mean? It means that juju has become the gospel. If just hold on. If somebody manifests witchcraft practices, that doesn't become the policy of the church.
Okay.
Do you know who placed the juju there? It could be anybody. Was it placed by a pastor, an elder, a Christian? It was found around the church compound. That doesn't define the church.
Because of the infighting in the church.
No, you can't say that.
If you permit me,
you can't say that. Do you know who put it?
Reverend,
perspective.
Who put the juju?
If we say we are not sinners, we are liars.
Yes, of
We
course.
all are sinners. First,
Yes.
by the fact that we are born short of the glory of God as descendants of Adam and Eve. That is original sin. And secondly, we are victims of actual sins. Actual sins are those things that we do conscious of the fact that we are not supposed to do them, yet we do them because of our fleshly weaknesses. And when it comes to power tussle within the church, you realize that actual sins are multiplying because the tendency is for people to amass wealth. It happens even with St. Peter. When up the mountain, he told Jesus Christ that may I build a tent here for yourself, another one for James, so that we remain where life was happy. And it is this attitude of looking for maximum comfort, which of course was also typical in the character of Peter, that other preachers of the gospel and even followers of Christ imbibe. And because it is about making gains in order to live, some people don't even have a sense of decency in the church in what they do in order to earn the daily living.
They are too
And because there is power tussle, the virtues of Christ, because leadership in the Presbyterian Church means leading people to Christ, and you cannot lead by bad examples. And so if you were to follow in the footsteps of Christ Jesus, you will be exemplary in what you say and in what you do. Unfortunately, actual sins are multiplying in such a way that because of our fleshly weaknesses, we continue to fall prey to some of these earthly sins.
Now let me give two intellectual frameworks that are operating in this conversation. One, the first thing is that there's a conflict between church leadership and social leadership. Church leadership is spiritual.
Right.
But at the same time, we are trying to limit occurrences in which the pastor or church leaders become domineering. And so they open up democracy. When Jesus Christ selected his 12 disciples, was it election? So there's a tension between spiritual leadership and social leadership. At one time, we want to express democracy in the church, where the majority carries the day. At one time, we want spiritual leadership. But when you look at theocracy in the Bible, when you look at the type of leadership style of Jesus Christ, it was not a type of democracy.
Well,
now,
remember
democracy. Listen. Hold on, let me finish. Hold on, Joe, let me finish.
Judas Iscariot was replaced under election.
Yes. The true Lot.
Yes.
Was that election?
Oh, yes. It was election at the time.
Now, the second thing you're trying to mix spiritual leadership and the approach of democracy. So there's a tension. Now, the second thing that there's an evolution of the market economy right inside the church. The church economy doesn't operate in space, it operates within. For example, if you want to run a church, you will need money. That introduces market economy. This is completely different from the times of the missionary, when Christians were expected to come to church, give no offering. The missionaries brought the money from abroad. But today the church is operating within a setup of market economy. This tension, this paradigm, or this framework affects the church's instincts, either to raise funds, to keep its social structures, and so on and so forth.
Yes,
these are the dynamics.
Reverend,
No, it's a problem. When the pastor talks about,
move from a particular parish because of
the tent building attitude. It's because of the money economy in the church.
Good, and that's why they will not want
because the society has evolved as an economic unit, and the church operates within the community.
So you are the Simeon, right?
Yes, I'm in Simeon.
If you are sent today, if you are removed from Simeon,
you are not asking question. Give your contribution.
No, as a journalist, I think I have a right.
No, not to.
No, you're the one.
But I'm saying that there are pastors. If, for example, I'm a pastor in Simeon,
yes,
and you remove me today and send to Akwaya, where I know that life there is not the same in Simeon. There are times I may decide not to go, and it has happened like that in some of our mainstream churches, that when pastors are transferred, they don't move because of the environment, because of the social environment.
We will get to that.
Those are human leakages, but those are the policies.
They leave, go create their own churches. We will get to that, and that's an aspect of democracy we touch. Reverend Dr. Nditeme Chalman wanted to look at this same issue from another perspective.
Yes, I was talking about the issue of the witchcraft that you have raised, and my brother and colleague was saying we don't know who placed it. I want to approach it from a different perspective and from a very pragmatic standpoint, namely that personally I cannot deny, and I will never deny the reality of the fact that there is witchcraft
in the church.
Practice in the church. And this is my piece and my take on it. Number one, the Bible is very clear. Jesus Christ says, not everyone who calls me Lord, Lord, Lord will enter the kingdom of heaven. That therefore simply tells us and means that within the fold of the church, there are people who are not really Christians. And so they will practice the witchcraft. Furthermore, it is no secret. I like to talk frankly. It is no secret that there are some in the church who are occultic. They are Freemasons, they are Rosicrucians, they are Juju practitioners, and yet they are there in the church. And one truth that we cannot deny is the fact that the church has no spiritual microscope at the door of the church to scrutinize who crosses the door to enter the church. The church doesn't have that. And it is also very clear, and should be made clear to us here, that there is no single local church or congregation or denomination below the sun, under the sun, that is 100% pure.
I get you.
The reason,
yes,
that does not at all discount the fact that the church is pure. That is the reason.
That's a good point. I like that point.
That is the reason. Wait a minute, Brother Killian.
I like that
is the reason why, in spite the witchcraft, whether we know who put it or who didn't put it, the fact remains that it was placed by somebody within the church. In spite the witchcraft, in spite all what is happening, in spite the power struggle, my peace is that Jesus Christ is in the church.
Yes.
And why occultic practice in the church?
No,
let me add to what. No, Allah is our thing. Let me add.
Our thing is inclusive. Inclusive.
Very inclusive.
All of us.
Now we have an input.
Go ahead.
Let me say something. Look, I want to draw a line between individual indiscretions and what the church stands. The church remains a pure place.
Yes.
The body of Christ. And those things that you consider as the weaknesses of the church, they are the weaknesses of individual members who have come to the church. It doesn't tamper with the sanctity of the church. And so when you start talking about the church, you should be talking about fallen individuals within the presence of the church. And the prosperity of evil.
The church is made up of individuals.
The prosperity of evil never dents the purity and the sanctity of the church.
Thank you. You made that point. I will come back to that same point when you raise it. You quoted so many things and you said you were frank. That's how we introduce you. That's how you are known around. I'm very happy to share that with you here on the set. If, let's even just call it, the devil comes into the church, sits there, and goes back the same. And I know every day you say, nobody who came here should go back the same. It means probably that spiritually you are weak to convert all those people who have come into the church. We're all with magical powers, occultic stuff, and the rest. Why don't you call on the Holy Spirit to arrest those people?
Well, that is just, I mean, with all the due respect, with all the love, with all the, in fact, the happiness, just permit me, I mean, in my primitive Christian posture, to say that is just the viewpoint of a lay person. The truth is that it is not because those other things are still there. You don't know the quantum of what you have named that came in. And in our theological construct as church, we say when one soul alone accepts Christ, the angels in heaven, they rejoice. And therefore, you are talking of, say, maybe 10,000 that came to church. And we have preached, we have taught, and even one out of the 10,000. Mark you that you are now looking at the 9,999 that are still the way they were. But you have not seen the one that has rejoiced. We don't convert or do everything all. It doesn't all happen on one day.
Okay, I will leave it at that.
The church is a pilgrim people. The church is a pilgrim people. We are on a journey.
Yes.
Do you know how many Christ converted for the number of years he was on earth? How many did he convert? The process of salvation.
Now let us get an expert. Professor Lang Michael Puher is an associate professor of religious history, and he is going to tell us why we have this type of practices. Why is the modern church going the way it is going? Professor?
Thank you so much, Killian, for inviting me on your program. With regards to the question on the problems of the church in modern society, permit me start by saying that the church in the modern society suffers from the lack of integrity, lack of credibility, and lack of credibility. This is so because of growing disillusionment, skepticism, and loss of faith among so many members of the Christian church who think that the church has deviated or is deviating from its real nature and calling. And so skepticism, disillusionment, and loss of faith are features of the modern society, and this has been yielded by the modernization of our societies over the years, and like I said already, the deviation of the Christian church from its calling and real nature. And what is the effect of this? Membership in Christian churches is declining. In Europe and America, this is already very evident because churches are shutting down, churches are being shut down because of lack of membership. The situation is a little bit different in Africa because rather church membership in Africa is growing, but it has also been argued that most of these churches are not doing what they are supposed to be doing. There is growing materialism in these churches, with some of them functioning like business enterprises, and Christians think that the church is not fulfilling its mission and they are abandoning the faith, and it is even predicted that in years to come, instituted Christianity will collapse in many parts of the world. And so the church in our modern society is a church in crisis, in a crisis situation.
Wow. We have 1 minute each to react to Professor Lang Michael, who is an associate professor of religious history. I'm going to start with, I started with you the last time, Reverend Dr. Nditeme.
Thank you. With all due respect and admiration for the scientific analysis of the professor, I think there is an important fact, namely that the mission of the church, the nature of the church has not changed as Jesus Christ handed it down to us. It is the actors who have missed out, some of the actors, not even all, some of the actors who have missed out on the mission of the church, the nature of the church as handed down to us by Jesus Christ, that makes the church to be what we hear the professor talking about.
Yes, Reverend.
Well, I think he's speaking from a materialist position, from a social analyst position, but the church is providential. There's a providential element in the church, the mystery element of the church, the body of Christ. And so the Bible says the gates of hell will not overcome the church. But when you read Christian demographics, global Christianity is sliding in the global south, and the projections about the numbers will even be more. I think what he should be saying, is that it will be a very widespread Christianity without depth, but talking about the declining numbers. Not now. It may happen, but not now, because what is happening in Europe and America, these are still the effects of the Enlightenment. Then now we are talking about postmodernism. These are different situations.
Thank you very much. Richard, 1 minute too.
Yeah, I agree with the professor that the church is deviating, or some of the churches are beginning to deviate from their original missions, and that's when white tribalism and favoritism do come in. Until we realize that we don't need to be tribalistic when we're doing maybe appointments or transfers, or that we don't favor some people against others, I think the church is going to stand on that mission, and with that, the church in Africa is going to go a long way.
Thank you very much, Joe.
The analyst talked about the loss of faith, which is a reality in some churches, if not most today. Why the loss of faith? Because by their fruits you shall know them. If the preacher is preaching and walking a different work, what do you expect from the followers? The tendency is corruption, moral decadence that have crept into the church, and rather than the church copying, rather than the society copying the church, some leaderships in some churches have the tendency to copy
the wrong thing,
the society, the wrong things. And so the loss of faith is a question, is a focus that should be reviewed by the mainstream churches. Why can you do the preaching and you cannot do the walking?
Good. That's the question. We are going to go into specifics after the general these things. We are happy we have the PCC Secretary Committee of the Ministry. One of the leading members is among the first three. He's even the operational, commander of the church.
Yeah, not me. We have the financial secretary. We have the moderator, senior financial secretary.
Oh, you are one of them.
You are the third in command.
You are one of them.
Humble servant.
You are a humble servant. We accept. That's why you are here.
Not me.
Yes, you are Secretary Committee of the Ministry.
Position, yeah.
That's we give you that. Okay. As we speak in Kumba, the church there is sealed by the administrative authorities because magical powers were found gaining ground, and there was it was just a result of the fight for position in church.
Lives came under threat.
Lives came under threat. That is one. Social media has carried your church to the marketplace. Centralization of power. Stay silent, that is the moderator in front of what they call the church in Kumba and in other areas.
Even the crisis, generally.
Accusing of having the type of scandals, I will not call some of them here, that the PCC has not had, not doing so much to protect the image of the church. We also have a church, a Baptist church in Bamenda, that is also sealed, I am told, by the administrative authority.
The church is in court with the pastor.
The church is in court. With the church is in court. We say it that way, with the different camps of that institution, the Redeemer Baptist Church. We're just giving these as examples. There are so many other examples. What is happening to the PCC with regard to all these accusations?
No, nothing. I think you can assess us from outside. Somebody sits in his room, types in his phone, start forwarding it many times. No, we have the structures of the church that determines whether the church is on good foot or not. The congregations, the presbytery meetings, the synod. If we go to the synod and we hear members, the delegates who have come from the different, they say, oh, we are not feeling the warmth of the church is deviating, we will take concern. But if you sit in your room, you have an axe to grind, I don't even know you, you are faceless, you type a message, scandals, rock PCC, you forward them, and so it can go as wide.
It becomes social media.
Hold on, I'm responding.
After Reverend, I will come to you.
Yes.
That's a reality.
Wait. Somebody sits in his room. You don't know where he belongs. He says he's an online blogger. He's describing the church. The church is inside the church. The church is not on social media. You can assess us from outside. A doctor diagnosed me from inside, not from apparent observation. And as much as we know, if these things that you are saying, especially so-called scandals and all, if they were really, we have very, very responsible Presbyterians. We have the board of trustees, who they are the conscience of the church. We have the synod, the moderator, the leaders which are answerable to them.
The constitution of the church, the finance order,
you have all those things.
Instruments.
Therefore, I'm telling you that if these organs felt that the church was not on the right path, they will call us to order. Don't forget that the churches are undergoing, the churches are operating within a time of crisis. You have the COVID pandemic. You have the Anglophone crisis that has hit 82% of our area of coverage. You ought to give the leaders of the church credit for keeping the church, the doors worship. You ought to give credit to the pastors who are being shot and they are still going to preach the gospel. You don't see that. You only see somebody who sits somewhere in an obscure place, writes a message, start forwarding without a name. In administration, anybody who writes and does not take responsibility, that is not to be considered.
Reverend, forgive them as the Lord has forgiven us.
No, forgiving them,
that you are forgiving them. That's the primary rule.
We give them what they call a dignified silence, because by talking and responding to all those people who are writing, we only give them importance, and that's what they are looking for. Not very well today that when you have a social media blog, you just need people to be sharing and sharing. I hear that they pay you some amount of money, if many people. So people look for what is trending. And because our church has reached the apex, the height that it has never reached before. Our moderator have had a lot of national influence. Today he has become a scapegoat, but the church is inside the church.
Yes, Reverend, thank you for the clarification. But I am, as the coordinator of this program, and as a person out there, not very satisfied when you say that the church is in the church.
Yes,
the Great Mission, what is the Great Mission all about?
The Great Commission,
the Great
Commission. Carry the gospel out, but not to receive instructions from outsiders who want to set the agenda for the church.
The Great Commission
say, take the gospel out there.
Now, if you see people carrying out an anti-Great Commission, making people not to believe you, when you eventually come to convince them, and you stay quiet, what do you think you are doing?
Let me give you
they are conquering your field out.
Let me give you
what you are supposed to do.
Let me tell you what is happening in one of our congregations in Kumbatown. That tells you that the Christians of the congregation have participated in the leadership. The synod sent out a communique and they responded. That shows that there's conversation within the church. The church is not bereft of conversation. But when you start telling me about social media things, no, that's not the church. In Kumbatown, it's a show of conversation. It's a show of participatory leadership. The synod investigated the congregation, found that some people were wanting, took a decision. The Christians said, no, synod, we have another opinion.
But you have a communication arm of the
communication. That's participation in leadership. You should rather give our church credit. And I tell you that Presbyterians are responsible. If we do foolish things, we the leaders, they will hold us accountable, but not from outside when you want to set an agenda for the church, because it will make you trendy, it will make your paper look
now to end the discussion. What is the situation of that Kumba piece?
Now in Kumba, in Kumba town, yes, which of course you expect that the SDO will not want things to spill over, will not want an escalation to disturb social peace in a very fragile atmosphere. So I think he does what it's within his precinct and ambit, and the church is within the state. We respect, but that doesn't mean that the matter is not under observation. The church doesn't rush. We are praying. We pray over these things. We are persuading. We persuade people. We see how we, instead of using a very heavy hand.
Thank you.
We keep on
Thank you very much. Let me admit here that I did so much to get in contact with the people who are accused there.
Yes.
I have gone, people in Kumba who are watching this, some of them would say that I have sent them there to go and get the main accused, and I have not succeeded. It's the same thing I've done in Bamenda as I speak. I'll come back to you, Joe and Richard. I've done in Bamenda to take one case in point. That sends me to Reverend Dr. Nditeme Shalaman, who also has a very hot thing, a similar thing in the CBC in Bamenda, where Redeemer Baptist Church is in court with the CBC. What is the situation? It is also sealed by administrative authorities. What is the situation there, Reverend?
Thank you for raising that issue, and let me put it in context. We have a situation where a pastor of one of the churches of the Cameroon Baptist Convention, in this case Redeemer Baptist Church, wakes up one day and declares that the church is his property. And he goes further to convert the parsonage, house and land with house on it, that was bought with money given by foreign partners of the Cameroon Baptist Convention. And the foreign partners supplied the money for the pastor's house. And it was bought for the church. And the pastor converts it and gets a land title in his name, his wife, and children as co-owners. So that is the context. In other words, this is a situation where an individual is claiming church property to be his personal property. And then the Cameroon Baptist Convention acts a main line, and mark you, the first Christian denomination, the first denomination in the country in our history, the Baptists were the first, is saying no, it does not work this way. Having said that, I have very humble respect for every individual, even the one that opposes the Cameroon Baptist Convention in general and opposes me in particular. I think that if I pick the issue of Redeemer Baptist Church, discussing the details here on this platform, I think that there is inequality, in the sense that I would have wished that the pastor in question, who is claiming
I tried to get to him, I couldn't get his number.
Property for his personal property, if he were here, I think it would have been fair for me to speak and he speaks.
You are very
because
correct.
If I am speaking now here, it is only my own side of the story.
You are very correct, but I am told that he developed part of that church with his personal money.
No, that is not true. That is not true,
money
sir.
from where?
Which church? Which church? Let us face, let us speak truth in the fear of God. Which church develops with personal money? Anyway, as I have told you, with all due respect, I am not comfortable to discuss Redeemer Baptist Church on this platform, for the simple reason that Redeemer Baptist Church does not have the privilege now to sit here and also do that.
Yes.
Now, this situation, wait a minute.
Yes.
When this situation now happened, and we observed it with pain, and we continue to observe it with pain, we reach out to our brother, we reach out to the pastor to reconsider his position. I personally went as the executive president of the Cameroon Baptist Convention to the church to speak to him.
30 seconds.
And I was jeered at. I was, belittled, jeered at. And because of the violent reaction, I had to apply to the Dio of Bamenda 3
Yes.
that he should use his administrative police power to seal the church.
Yes, it is sealed.
Because
we know
if
that
is not
we know that
CBC Christians
we know that.
send there.
Yes, there will be conflict and it will lead to something else.
And therefore,
yes.
that is it. At
Reverend,
this point, I leave it here. I'm not ready to discuss.
Not discuss.
For the reason I have given. Not because I want to be fair.
Not discuss, Reverend. The only other thing in his favor is that you allowed him for long to do what he was doing, and then one day you just get out of your dream, you come in. Because to change the land title,
What do you mean by got out of his dream?
No,
of the church.
Wait a minute. It's because you don't know the facts. I have told you I'm not ready to discuss the facts here.
We'll leave it there. Yes.
You don't know the facts.
We'll leave it there.
To say that we were having for long,
There are lapses because of indiscipline. How is discipline handled in the church?
Objectively, there are documents, there are all the steps that the CBC had taken before getting to this point.
In very good, Richard, we have left you in the cold for quite some time.
Yes, I think, let me start with Reverend
you are reacting to what
Shalama. Yes, from what he said. I think I dove my heart on his decision.
Yes.
Because, it takes somebody of mentor to take the type of decision he took for the sake of saving that congregation. Others will just wave it. There are others who have been before him who tried and it didn't work. So even to say that he has just come out now, no, I said no.
Yes,
he has taken a very firm decision, which I appreciate it.
Joe?
If others, if other church leaders would take such decisions, I think we will not have the type of conflict that we have within the church.
Yeah, Joe, 1 minute, please.
Clearly, the lack of accountability, transparency in the conduct of the affairs of the church are lapses that are creating most of the problems that the churches are facing today.
Okay.
And so, what are the regulatory instruments in order to reinforce discipline on finances, discipline on moral values, on the property of the church? I think that these aspects are guilty of revisionism, and the church leaders that these authorities here constitute, plus those who are watching us, should be able to get back to the drawing board.
Thank you. One last issue. Yes. If we go out without touching this in the next 4 minutes we have, our viewers will ask why the church and politics. Should church leaders and other prominent Christians be involved in partisan, active politics?
Now, our politics is pulpit politics. It is not partisan.
Secular.
Our politics is not partisan politics, but we are in politics. We call it pulpit politics. We preach justice and equity. We represent the voice of the voiceless, but we are not partisan.
Reverend Ditem?
Of course, that is a rhetorical question as far as I'm concerned, whether pastors should be politicians like partisan politicians. The emphatic answer that I would give to this is an emphatic no. Actually, the Cameroon Baptist Convention, the reason is simple. A pastor who is involved in politics, in fact, none of us would support any politician, because the pastor is just like the traditional rulers, who some of them unfortunately have dabbled into politics and then messed up everything. The pastor has before you on Sunday Christians who are coming from all diverse the 300, maybe from the 329 political parties.
And some of them are staunch rivals.
Of course. And then now, if you go the pastor supporting one particular political party, by implication, immediately you are teaching, your sermons will be interpreted from the perspective of the political party with which you identify. Okay. So we don't identify with any political party, and we don't want to be, at least as far as I'm concerned. And my call to all pastors of the Cameroon Baptist Convention, not at all, in whatever form.
To what Joe said, he would have been asking us the question: what are the instruments of transparency and accountability?
For that, I would not have been asking.
In the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, we have we have the internal audit department for internal, and we have external auditors who do their work independently. I'm telling you the truth. It's because of the transparency of our system that we have not had an internal rebellion. That's why we can wait off all these things from outside, because they are not well thought
The
of.
finance order of the church
The
stipulates
finance order,
who
the
should
book
do
of
what
orders.
and at what time with what
In my
amount of
local
money.
congregation, when I'm pastor, I have nothing. I finish the service, I'm here. What is happening with the finances? I don't know.
In the next 2 minutes.
That
we
is
have-
why I was
How
sharing
can-
about.
how can we solve?
I was saying that if there are regulatory instruments in the PCC, for instance, the other churches can also have regulatory
Emulate us what we
Yes.
are doing. I mean,
The take-home message beginning with you.
Take home message, Killian. I didn't say where I belong to. I'm a Catholic Christian, where we believe so much. The Catholic Church is not a democracy, but it is hierarchical. That what the person at the top says stands. It is a dogma, but it is taken for the truth. You don't change it.
Okay.
And that is why when a priest or a bishop tells you this is this, it ends there. So I think that the conflicts that we are having within our churches, because when we tend to develop interest on so many things that involve the society and leaving our congregation, we have problems with our Christians.
Yes, Joe.
Killian, God is holy and should be kept holy.
Yeah, thank you.
And as a matter of fact, if we were to do comparative analysis, I would say that where you have the Muslims worshipping, you have one spiritual guide and a possible assistant depending on the size of the community. And there are no conflict because it is organized in such a way that, yes, it is organized in such a way that the salaries of the spiritual guide are paid for, and Article 2, which are their benefits, are given to them discreetly, and there is no point of conflict.
Thank you very much.
Global tendencies are taking their toll on local identities in a global age, and the churches within society.
Yes.
We are responding to those changes. We don't see it as a crisis. We see it as an inherent part of our mission to deal with the undoable, to meet our members in their fallen humanity, and to progressively provide for them the salvific message for them to be changed. The church is not in crisis. The church is challenged.
Thank you very much. End times, Reverend.
What I would say is that it would take a cooperation or a collaboration between the state and the church to redress this situation. For us, the church, we need to stick to our roles and be accountable, be transparent, and ensure that there is discipline. For the state, we desire that the state should create a legal enabling environment that should check some of these things.
Yes, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You listen there, you watch all of us. Reverend Dr. Nditeme Shalaman, who is the executive president of the Cameroon Baptist Convention, headquarters in Bamenda, of course. We have Reverend Emmanuel Masoko, who is PCC Secretary Committee of the ministry. We have Joe Tiemoncho. Joe Tiemoncho is a senior journalist, and Richard Nde is the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Herald Tribune. If you miss out on this program, there will be a full rebroadcast on Monday at 2:30. Thank you for giving us your precious time.